Two rods, same rack. One costs $65. One costs $260. Same 40 million modulus carbon fiber. Same pre-preg supplier. In some cases, the same factory floor in Busan, South Korea. The only thing that changed between those two rods is the logo on the grip. And the logo is costing you $195. That gap has a name. The rod industry calls it nothing, because naming it would mean admitting it exists. We're going to call it the brand tax. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to see it on every rod on that wall. Here's exactly what we're covering. 5 brands collecting the biggest brand tax in the aisle, 2 that actually earn their premium, and 1 question that explains why your $170 rod feels identical to your buddy's $70 rod. Once you see how this aisle actually works, you'll never look at it the same way again. Here is what rod builders know that most anglers walking into Bass Pro never will. 2 factories in South Korea roll the blanks that end up under more brand names than you'd believe. JS Company and NS Black Hole. Those 2 facilities supply the backbone of rods hanging on walls across every major tackle retailer in the country. And the carbon cloth going into those blanks comes from 3 Korean pre-preg suppliers, Hancock Carbon, SK Chemical, and Hyosung, selling the same material to all of them. From there, the blank gets shipped. Guides get wrapped, grips get glued, a logo gets stamped. Sometimes that finishing happens in a different country, entirely from where the blank was rolled. The rod you're holding has crossed 2 or 3 borders before it reached that hook on the wall. Then there's the IM rating printed on the blank. IM 6, IM 7, IM 8. Sounds like a specification. It isn't. Gary Loomis himself, the founder of G. Loomis, has said publicly that those are old Hexcel trade numbers, not an industry standard. One company's IM7 is another company's IM6. The label tells you nothing, but it sounds like it tells you everything. That ambiguity is intentional. The logo on the grip is the single biggest variable in the price. Not the carbon, not the modulus, not the engineering. Now here are the 5 brands using that system most aggressively. Number 1. Fenwick. If you're over 40, you remember what this name meant. The Tacoma, Washington factory. The fiberglass legends your dad fished. The rod that felt like it was built by someone who actually cared where the guides landed. Fenwick wasn't just a brand, it was a benchmark. Here's what that name is worth now. Fenwick is owned by Pure Fishing, which is owned by Sycamore Partners, a private equity firm out of New York. Not a fishing company, not a tackle company, a private equity firm whose entire business model is acquiring legacy brands, cutting costs, and extracting margin. That's not speculation. That's what private equity firms do. The HMG series, Fenwick's mid-tier flagship, runs $130 to $170. It is not made in Tacoma. It is not made in America. It is made by Gray's, a Hardy subsidiary, in China. You are paying $130 to $170 for a Chinese rolled carbon blank with a legacy American name printed on it. Forum communities figured this out years ago. The conversation isn't even controversial anymore in rod building circles. Fenwick stopped making rods decades ago. What exists today is Gray's rolling blanks in China and branding them for the American market under a name that carries 60 years of reputation it didn't earn. Think about what that means. The factory is gone. The craftsmen are gone. The Tacoma address is gone. What remains is the logo. And the logo is what you're paying for. The brand outlasted the factory by over 20 years. Every dollar of premium above what that Chinese rolled blank is actually worth is pure brand tax. You're not buying Fenwick. You're buying the memory of Fenwick. And Sycamore Partners is charging you full price for a memory. That's number 1. And here's the part that should make you stop and think. Fenwick isn't alone in this. The next brand on this list shares the exact same owner, the exact same private equity parent, and the exact same sourcing strategy. Different logo. Same math. Number 2. Abu Garcia Veritas. Same parent company as Fenwick, Pure Fishing, same private equity owner, Sycamore Partners, same New York boardroom making sourcing decisions about rods they will never fish. The Veritas runs from $100 to $160 and pulls from the same Asian OEM pool as everything else at that price point. Different name on the blank. Same supply chain underneath it. And here's the thing that should stop you cold when you're standing in that aisle holding one. 2 of the first 3 brands on this list are owned by the same private equity firm, making the same sourcing decisions under different logos. That is not a coincidence. That is a portfolio strategy. 1 acquisition, 2 brand taxes, 1 balance sheet. Move on. Number 3. Dobyns Champion XP. I want to be honest here before I say anything else. It's a nice rod. The action is clean. The components are decent. I'm not going to pretend otherwise, because that's not the point. The point is what you're paying for it, and what you're actually getting. The Champion XP runs $250 to $280. Those blanks are rolled in South Korea using Toray carbon. Then the rod ships to China for final assembly. Guides, grips, wraps, boxing, all Chinese assembly. And again, that's fine. Chinese assembly at that price point is not the problem. The problem is that Dobyns prices this rod like it was rolled and finished in Park Falls, Wisconsin. Like it carried American labor from blank to grip. It didn't. Forum users on Bass Boat Central did the math that everyone in the rod community has been quietly doing for years. The Champion XP should sit at $150 to $165 based on where and how it is actually made. The Extreme should be around $200 to $215. That's where the country of origin puts it. Dobyns charges American-made prices on a rod that moves between Korea and China. That gap between what it should cost and what they charge you. That is the brand tax in its most straightforward form. Number 4. Lew's Custom Pro and Tournament Pro. Price range, $100 to $200. That's a serious chunk of money for a rod that's supposed to represent the upper tier of what Lew's offers. And Lew's has built real credibility in the bass fishing world. Affordable reels, tournament presence, a name that moves product. That credibility is exactly what makes this worth examining. Those blanks are manufactured by Dayo in Korea and China. The same Dayo facility building, rods and reels for several other brand names you would recognize on that same rack. The blank under that shrink wrap is not proprietary Lew's technology. It is not the result of some internal rod development program happening in an American workshop somewhere. It is a Korean or Chinese OEM blank, dressed in Lew's tournament graphics and packaged in a Lew's rod sock. The premium you're paying is the name, nothing more. And when a $100 to $200 rod is built on the same OEM supply chain as the budget options 2 pegs down, the tournament graphics stop looking like a feature and start looking like a price justification. Number 5, and this one is going to sit uncomfortably with a lot of people. G. Loomis. Specifically the E6X and the IMX Pro, the mid-tier lineup that runs $200 to $350. Before anything else, let's be precise about what this is not. The NRX Plus and the Asquith are legitimate masterpieces. US rolled, Japan rolled, built with engineering that justifies every dollar. Those rods earn their price. This is not about those rods. This is about the E6X and IMX Pro. At $200 to $350, you are in St. Croix legend territory. A rod rolled on proprietary mandrels in Park Falls, Wisconsin. What the Loomis mid-tier is not giving you is Woodland, Washington labor, or Kumamoto, Japan engineering. What it is giving you is the Loomis logo. A logo the flagship earned. A premium the mid-range inherited without earning it. That's the most uncomfortable brand tax on this list. Because the name is genuinely great. And that's exactly what makes it work. Sit with that for a second. Now here are the 2 that actually earn it. Because this was never about scaring you out of the rod aisle. It was about showing you where the markup lives and where it doesn't. And 2 brands on that wall are doing something genuinely different from everything we just covered. First, Cast King. Specifically, the Speed Demon Pro at $109. Fuji guides, Fuji reel seat, Win grips, one-piece blank, Chinese made. And Cast King says so directly on their own website. No heritage story. No implied American craftsmanship. No tournament legacy used to justify a price the components don't support. They tell you what you're buying, and they charge you accordingly. Wire to Fish's publisher reviewed the swimbait model and said he would recommend it to anyone shopping in that $100 range. That is not a small endorsement from a publication that tests rods across every price point in the market. Honest caveat, Cast King still will not disclose which specific factory rolls their blanks. The day they do, they will be the most transparent budget rod company in the market. They are not there yet, but they are not pretending to be something they are not. In an industry built on brand mythology, that matters more than it sounds. The brand tax on Cast King is as close to zero as anything in that aisle. Second, St. Croix. And this one is in a different category entirely. St. Croix rolls their Legend, Avid, and Premier blanks in Park Falls, Wisconsin, on proprietary mandrels using their own SC3I, SC4+, and SCV carbon. They own the rolling operation from raw material to finished blank, top to bottom. Then they launched Rod Geeks, a subsidiary that sells the exact same blanks used in finished St. Croix rods, with a public chart mapping every blank to the St. Croix model it came from. They showed you the blueprint. In an industry that survives on opacity, St. Croix published the answer key. Honest caveat, the Triumph and Lower Mojo lines are Mexican rolled, not Wisconsin. Know which tier you're buying before you buy it. But St. Croix is the benchmark. The only brand on that wall showing you exactly what your money buys. That is worth something. And in this industry, it is worth a lot. Here's what all of it comes down to. The logo on the grip is the single biggest variable in the price. Not the carbon, not the modulus, not the engineering, the logo. And now you can see it on every rod on that wall. Next time you're standing in that aisle holding two rods and one costs 3 times the other, ask one question. Where was this blank actually rolled? If nobody at the counter can answer that, the silence tells you everything you need to know. You can see the brand tax now, which means you can stop paying it. Subscribe if this was worth your time.